Good afternoon. It's Thursday. It's 3:08 and it's time for you to be adrenalized. That's right, folks. It's time to get that blood flowing and get re-energized. Why? Because you're here, because you're alive, and it's time to be motivated to live your best life. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Marino. Welcome to the Tom Marino Show. I am your host, success strategy coach, Tom Marino. Thank you so much for tuning in on what's a little bit of a gloomy day out there today. We had some rain this morning. It's in the 70s, high 60s, and it kind of feels a little chilly. There's a little chill in the air, but it's still June 16th, and it's almost time for summer really to start to unleash. School is almost over. Next week, I think, is the last week of school for everybody here. I know my son finishes finals tomorrow, so we're excited about that. It's been a fun 5 days of finals for him. Listen, I want to hear from you. I want you can give me a call at 631-451-1039. We are live in the studio right now. You can give us a call. We're going to be covering mobile apps today. We're going to be talking all about mobile apps, and that's what my guest specializes in. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that you know how to reach me. You can find me at tommarino.com. That's tommarino.com. Or follow me on Instagram at Tom Marino Coaching. That's Tom Marino Coaching. Before we get into the show, of course, I want to thank our sponsor, New House Restoration, where they turn your damaged old house into a new house. Visit them at newhouserestoration.com. That's newhouserestoration.com. If you had a fire damage, water, sewer backup, you have asbestos issues, contact New House Restoration at 631-604-8590. That's 631-604-8590. I want to welcome a very special guest to today's show. His name is Dan Hafner. Dan is the owner of Dapper Mobile Apps. That's Dapper Mobile Apps. Dapper Mobile Apps offers end-to-end mobile and web app services from design, development, marketing, and even training. It's a one-stop shop for all your technology needs, your mobile technology needs. His website is dappermobileapps.com. That's dappermobileapps.com. And Dan and I have worked on a project together. Actually, my app, Bridge to Change, was all because I met up with Dan, and he helped me to get that launched and get that off the ground. And I learned so much in that process. And Dan is a great coach. Let me tell you, he does a great job. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me on, man. This is awesome. Appreciate it.
Oh, fantastic. I'm glad. I know you're not in the studio. I know you're in your home in Pennsylvania, but hey,
yeah. This
is the first time that have you been on radio before? Is this the first time for you?
No,
oh,
a bunch
awesome.
of podcasts, but this is the first live show. I feel like I'm in the studio. I feel the energy.
You feel the energy. Good. But that's good. I'm glad you feel the energy, my friend. That's awesome. So Dan, tell us a little bit about your company and how long you've been around and what's the focus.
Yeah, pretty much just like you said. I mean, I started back in 2020. I feel like when a lot of people decided in the world to start businesses, started as a hobby for me 5-6 years ago, just kind of messing around with different things online and figuring out what I could do, what I couldn't do. Mm-hmm. I never really had a tech background, never learned, coding and all kinds of different languages and things like that. But, I discovered a lot of stuff inside of the no-code, low-code space. For those of you that don't really know what that is, it's just being able to build stuff without having to learn how to HTML and JavaScript and all those crazy languages and stuff. And it was awesome because it gave someone like me who didn't have that ability to be able to build businesses and help businesses and build really cool things without having to learn all that. So yeah, it's been really fun. I've experimented. I've failed a lot. I've learned a lot. I've succeeded a lot. It's just been a crazy ride for the past couple of years, for sure.
Yeah, and and I have to say, you make it so easy, right? You make it's such an easy process. It's much easier than people think. People like, oh, you did an app. Wow, how did you do all that? Like, didn't that cost you like a fortune and stuff like that? But there's so many platforms and ways to do it where it's kind of like that plug and play kind of mindset, right? I mean, it's real, or activity. It's that plug and play kind of thing. And that's what I experienced with ours and building it on the back end and having some fun with that.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. And that's one thing I always went for because when I was first learning stuff, I went through it probably, I don't know, 20, 30 times on different platforms and ways to do it. And when you do something like that, you develop a process for it, right? So that was really all I ended up figuring out how to do, was to systematize, for lack of a better word, of how I actually got that to work. So that's how I applied it to you and to other people I've worked with. Is like, let's make this as simple as possible. I remember one of my early mentors, he always said, if you can't explain it to a fifth grader, you can't explain it well enough. And I'm like, every time I hear that, I'm like, you know what? That is so true. Like, if you can't break something down,
it is
super, super simple. You probably don't know it well enough. And then two, you're not explaining it well enough.
Correct. That is such I'm glad that you brought that up, because so many people, especially small business owners, they struggle with presenting what it is they actually do. Even as a coach, I have a tough time. People are like, what is a success strategist? What the heck is that? Aren't you just a life coach? And aren't you, and what do you really do as a life coach? Are you a therapist? Are you not a therapist? And, the answer is no, we're not therapists, right? And positioning and being able to explain exactly what you do, you have to always do it in a third. I was always taught a third grade mindset, right? Make sure you can explain it at the level of a third grader, because if you could do that, you do have a grasp of what it is that you do, and you make it much more palatable for people to really understand. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses face. Now, when you work with people, who do you tend to work with in terms of, you worked with me as a coach, and I know you have several different types of clients, but tell me a little bit about your client model, who you serve mostly.
Yeah, I mean, one demographic is definitely folks just like you, in the coaching space, consultant space, that kind of deal. Really, it's kind of, when I started out, it was more niche down into that, and then I realized, pretty much any entrepreneur, any solopreneur, anybody with a small team really can really use what we work with, So we've branched out, and we work with a lot of people in whatever space, you know what I mean? And then we've also worked with a couple of projects, like bigger term projects, as far as startups, like actual early stage startups who are looking to break into the mobile space. I mean, you've seen it, like, Instagram was the first $1 billion app. Like, we have yet to build a $1 billion app. I will say that we're not quite there yet.
One day, Dan.
One day that will be freaking awesome. That will be so cool. But yeah, I mean, it's really a lot of people who have programs, who really need automation, need some level of, like, I'm getting bogged down with all the one-on-one stuff, the fulfillment, the being on emails all day, the Zoom calls all day. I need to figure out something that's just a lot more streamlined, a lot more group oriented and automated. And that's really who we specialize and can really give really good results to. Yeah,
I mean, it's really a place to really put all of your information, right? I mean, that's really part of the goal of the app, is to put it all in one place and put it at people's fingertips, right? That's the main goal of most apps, is to give everybody access to the world at their fingertips.
Yeah, 100%. And we've even gotten a little deeper than that over the past couple of years. Even since I've started, when I worked with you, we realized that, you need some automation built in. Like, you're building an automation platform, really. And when a bucket fills up, you got to find some way to do things with that as well. So that's something we've been tweaking and perfecting over the past couple of months as well, is like an automation and onboarding place for that. Because if you fill up a fire hose with too much stuff, it's like a funnel, right? You got to find a way to spit it out.
Exactly, absolutely. And there's so much information that's being poured into that you have to funnel everything through. So we've been talking with Dan Hafner from Dapper Mobile Apps. You can find him at dappermobileapps.com. We are going to be talking a little bit more about app development, what really goes into it, hear a little bit more from Dan about the challenges that he faces in his business. And listen, if you have a minute, go to tommarino.com, check out the website, check out some of my latest articles, and we'll talk to you right after this commercial break. Hey, Hey, this is Tom Marino of The Tom Marino Show here. Imagine you wake up and you've had a major sewer backup in your home. Well, let me tell you about a company that I've worked with personally, New House Restoration, where they take your damaged old house and make it a new house. For any water, fire, mold, or asbestos damage, please call them at 631-604-8590. That's 631-604-8590. New House Restoration. And welcome back to the Tom Marino Show. I'm your host, Tom Marino, Success Strategy Coach. Thank you so much for tuning back in. And hey, it's Thursday, and some of us have a long weekend this weekend celebrating Juneteenth, and we also have Father's Day. So right now, I just want to give a shout out to all the dads out there celebrating Father's Day on Sunday. I want to shout out to my own dad and my father-in-law. Happy Father's Day, a little early. But it's going to be a fun weekend, hopefully. The weather's supposed to be great out there. We're supposed to have good times. Spend some time at the beach, maybe. Go down to the cabana, hang out at Nickerson, and, come on down. Come on down to the beach. Enjoy this Father's Day weekend. Fortunately and unfortunately, on Sunday night, of all nights, on Father's Day, my son has a double header. Like, I just want to go to baseball organizations and be like, seriously? It's Father's Day. But what better way to spend it with a ball game and watching your kid play? So that's what's coming up this weekend. We've been speaking with Dan Hafner of Dapper Mobile Apps. And Dan has become a good colleague and good friend of mine. He helped me to set up my app, which is Bridge to Change, which you can find on Apple and Google, and it's downloadable on all of those, and it's Bridge to Change, and I think it ends in Life Coach. Bridge to Change, the Life Coach, or it has Tom Marino on it, something like that. But go download that. There's a lot of free stuff in there. So Dan, when we worked through the process, we didn't have to use coding, and we didn't have to use like all this heavy stuff. So can you, for people out there that are listening right now, have always thought about doing an app, right? They want to do an app either for their business, or they're an executive and they work for an organization and they want to communicate with their employees through an app. Tell us a little bit about how simple it is.
Well, I wouldn't say it's simple. The process is simple. The execution is definitely what you got to work on. But so that's just kind of my story of how I got started. Right when I first wanted to build an app, I had no idea how to do it. I had no coding ability. I had basically no money. I was working a very low paying job, and I just wanted to do it. Right. So those were the two obstacles when I was like I didn't have the cash to go pay $100,000 when I contacted agencies, and I was like, hey, here's what I want to build. And they were like, okay, 150 grand. Didn't have that lying around.
Right.
And then, it was like, okay, build it yourself. Right. And then I started down that path, and that just didn't really work out that well for me. Right. So the process of kind of building something like this, or just like you said, like an internal tool or a business idea that you have, the ability to do it with this type of technology they have now is a really, really fast process. You can get something built and out the door. I mean, you could do it in a day if you really wanted to, if you had the time, or
right.
a week or a month or something like that. It really
right.
cuts down on that time, because when you get an MVP out, like a minimal viable product, just something that can prove your idea is worth its salt, or it's worth like, hey, this is going to be a good use case.
Right.
I mean, there's templates, there's, like you said, point and click, drag and drop type of deals that can just make it so simple to just say like, hey, I have this napkin sketch of something. Here's how it should work.
Right.
And then boom, you can actually make it clickable and usable and bring it to life. And then that, I remember when you saw yours, you were like, oh, wow, like this is actually a real thing. Like this is kind of cool. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking is there was so much planning that needed to go into it that you have to really execute on, right? It's the plan that you make to execute and get that app up and running. Like, you have to know what you want to put in there. And I remember you walked me through that process. What are the important things to put in there? We have some cool features like the daily goal setter, where it's an automated chat bot. That was cool that we put in there, and people, some people use it, some people don't, but it for us, it was such a huge accomplishment. I remember just like realizing we were able to get it to do the work that we wanted it to do. It was arduous. I mean, we went through several iterations, but at the same time, good planning is always necessary, right? You can't have a good outcome unless you have a good plan or a great plan, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, that's one thing I've been working on with a couple other people recently is, you know, it's doing the work up front. And it is arduous. There's strategy, there's thinking behind the scenes that goes into it. But again, like you build it once and then it's automated and then it can just run on its own, right? We always like to talk about scaling and automation and all these buzzwords, right? But when you really understand that, you know, like, hey, this might be a lot of work. Like I remember, like you said, the chatbot we built and the different features we were building. Once we got that tweaked and how we wanted it, it's really hands off at that point.
Right.
It really can just be like, hey, just like you said at the beginning of the segment, hey, go download the app. And you don't have to think about this. You can go and do your show. You can go and do sales calls. You can go do other things. You can go watch your kid's baseball game.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it. It's all taken care of. You've done that work up front. And that's like, I can't even overstate the importance of that. Like,
and
especially in the,
it's so true, because when you're doing the work and you're putting in the work and you make the time to do it, you get a product that's really working on its own now. Right? I mean, we have to update it. We haven't had it. We're in that process right now. You and I are going through some updates to the app and changing things up because it could get stale and old, right? You gotta open the windows, let fresh air in every year and modify. And I have so many new things that I've been working on this year that really need to get into the app that haven't made their way into the app just yet. But, you know, it's really that process of really going through the work to getting it done to be successful. And it's the same thing as coaching, right? I mean, you had a podcast, you'd coach people every day in what you were doing. You know, like your job is a coach. You're coaching people to build an app, right? I mean, what's some of the challenges that you face really with working with so many different people and in your line of work?
It's funny you say that. I woke up one day and was like, wow, I really am a coach. I never thought of myself as that until but I mean, one of the biggest challenges I see consistently is really people being afraid of technology, right? Really being like you said, like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this or how I can do this.
Right.
And it's really kind of a process I've learned of kind of soothing that reptilian brain. Like it kind of happens like in sales, right? You got to like kind of coax that to be like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry.
Right.
Like it's going to be all right. You're going to live, you know? And that's in part of what we just talked about too, the strategy and the strategic thinking or the forward thinking of like, hey, here's how I want this to work. Cause a lot of people come in and they're just like, they want the moon and stars.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, cowboy. Like, let's calm down here and let's figure out what you really need, because you can build something awesome. Mark Zuckerberg could have built the coolest Facebook ever, right? But if nobody needed the product, nobody would ever used it. Exactly. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things I see is people wanting to overreach and then kind of underestimating the work that it's going to take and the strategic thought. But then coaxing people through that. That's kind of what I've learned to do to the best of my ability. Anyway.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love about the app is that it's web-based. So people can go to a website on their desktop and check out the app. And it doesn't look identical, but it's all of the same stuff. It works really well. And like I have my coaching program in there. You help me to put all of my modules and the 38 forms that I use in my program. And all of that is so easily accessible now to everyone, both on their phones as well as right on the desktop. That's an awesome benefit of the product that you put out there.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the other cool thing when you start thinking about like an app and in a business and that kind of stuff is nobody really thinks about updates, right? You think about, well, we built this one thing, like, we like lifted the rock to the top of the mountain, right? And then you're like, okay, now what? Now, like you said before, you got to refresh it. You got to do different things. And having that ability to have it on your phone, I mean, our software, there's literally a button. You just click update now. Right. And all of those changes get pushed out to everyone right away. You don't have to go through review processes with Apple and Google and all that stuff. And it allows you to be innovative, iterative, and move quickly.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
That is awesome. That's a great way to summarize it. So we've been talking to Dan Hafner of Dapper Mobile Apps. You can find him at dappermobileapps.com. That's dappermobileapps.com. And listen, I want to hear from you. Go to Tom Marino Coaching on Instagram and DM me. Send me a message. Check out some of the cool reels I've been putting out this week. I've been having some fun with reels on Instagram this week. So go like them. Go follow me. That's Tom Marino Coaching on Instagram. All right, we will be back right after this commercial break.
I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time.
Hi, this is Tom Marino, success strategy coach and host of The Tom Marino Show. I want to invite you to join me and make the changes that you desire in your life. If you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, or executive that is struggling with burnout, overwhelm, or stress, then contact me at tommarino.com. That's tommarino.com. I will navigate you to achieve the success you desire. I will introduce you to 6 simple steps that will change your professional and personal life, and I will help you to choose your adrenalized life. An adrenalized life is an action mindset that empowers you to act decisively so that you can be more productive and get more done. If you are stuck, suffer from analysis paralysis, and can't get stuff done, do you want that to change? If the answer is yes, then contact me, Tom Marino, Success Strategy Coach, at tommarino.com. That's tommarino.com. And remember, you can choose your adrenalized life. And welcome back to the Tom Marino Show. I'm your host, Success Strategy Coach Tom Marino. Thank you so much for tuning back in. It is Thursday. It is June 16th. And it is 3:38 in the afternoon. We are live in the studio. We've been talking with Dan Hafner of Dapper Mobile Apps. Dan and I worked on my app together back in 2021. I can't believe it's been a whole year since really that's been launched, and we have a lot of downloads and a lot of people have been using it. It's fun when people I don't know download it and I see them filling out some of the forms. That's one of the fun things I get to see. That's full satisfaction for me, right? Like somebody's using my app to help them better their lives. And that's really what the purpose of it is to make things accessible for people that are looking for help, especially at my app in particular as a coach. So Dan, prior to the break, we were talking about, we talked about how relatively easy it is. It's not easy in terms of organizing it and getting it all executed, but the process is relatively easy. And it really is something that's very doable, that anyone really can go and create an app with you and with your support, and you being a coach in that process and realizing that. And, during the break, we were talking a little bit about, how it really requires you to be very logical, right? I mean, you have a lot of problems to solve. So tell us a little bit about your process of finding the logic where sometimes you can't.
Yeah, no, that's good. So actually, I kind of got into this field before. I had a job as a quality assurance software tester. I never really was like a developer before, okay, but I was in that job long enough that I got to hang around a lot of developers. So I learned a lot about how they are and how things go. A very interesting bunch of people, I'll say that. But I learned I a lot of that absorbed into me. I learned how, and I observed how they solved problems with logic, right? With like, hey, I expect when I click on this thing and I have these filters set on whatever, Facebook or whatever it is, I expect to see this thing, right? And that all the stuff you see on Instagram, all the stuff you see on apps, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, whatever, it's all technology logic. Right. That's all it is. It's all working behind the scenes because someone at some point put that in their mind and they said, hey, this is what I expect to see based on this set of data for this particular reason. Right. And then boom, it's all automated, it's all there, and it works over and over and over again. So, I mean, that fascinates me. Yeah. Like that just to me is just so cool. Because I guess I grew up never really like thinking like that. Right. So then when I was introduced to that, I was like, that's really, really cool.
Absolutely. And it gives you such a respect for people who are coders and work in HTML and are writing the language to be able to do exactly what it is that we expect it to do, right? I mean, I've had experience working on the back end of building automated processes, not using HTML, but just putting together the logic of the steps that need to happen and the sequences with which it has to happen. And it's such a different, it's an abstract way of thinking, yet it is so logical, right? Because you have to think about, okay, like it's like if you were to code electricity, you flip the switch, you expect the lights to go on, but you don't recognize everything that's happening in that circuit and in that current and all of that to actually turn the light on. That's what coders and people that work in developing these apps are doing. I mean, they're figuring out the logic to make that happen. But that's like life, right? When you have a problem, you have to look to where is the logic of the situation. And that's when we struggle as human beings, right? Is when it's not logical, when we lose it and it becomes a challenge because it's not a logical thing. It doesn't have a logical answer. Not everything is logical, or at least that's what I believe. I do believe that not everything can be solved logically, but most things can. So what are some of the challenges that you're facing right now in your business? I love to ask that of all my business owners. What's some of the big challenges right now that you're facing?
Yeah, and I guess it comes down to logic a little bit. I mean, I'm at the point where, and we talked about this during the break. I'm at the point where I need to scale. I need to delegate more. I need to learn how to kind of take a dose of my own medicine a little bit and learn how to systematize things and process and put things into processes and hire additional people. And it's terrifying. Like it's really, really scary. Because I think as part of us as we grow, like we especially in business, like that's our baby, that's our thing. We built it when no one was around, when no one was looking, and we have so much time and equity and money put into it. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, and the challenge for me is like, how do I systematize? How do I delegate this into someone? How do I put what's in my head that I've gathered into something that is repeatable, that I can scale? You know what I mean? That's where I'm at, and I've done a bunch of different things, and I'm always looking for new ways to do stuff. But that's the biggest challenge I have right now. Because
there's a lot of fear based around that, right? I mean, there's a lot of fear of letting go of that and trusting other people, right? But it's do as I say, not as I do, right? I mean, we coach people all day. You coach people to develop their app. I coach people to improve their lives, improve their businesses, and do all of that. But when it comes to ourselves, we struggle with that. We struggle with letting go. We struggle with hiring people. It really takes a ton of trust, right? We really have to give over trust to someone else. And you've had people work for you before, but what is that big fear that you have? Like, what is the fear that holds you back from doing that?
I don't know. I mean, there might be a sense of control, maybe. I like this. This is kind of like a live coaching session. This is cool.
There you go.
It might be that. It might just be a sense of control and just wanting to be like, hey, I need to have my hands in this because I know what needs to be done. There might be pride involved in that of like, no one can do this as well as I can, even though it's definitely not true.
Right.
I think there's little threads of that kind of stuff, throughout all that.
Well, it's more that fear of, is this going to fall apart if I give it too much and let go of too much, right? That's what it becomes, It's one of those things where you've got to look at sometimes relinquishing control. Somebody else is going to do it better than you could have done it. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think about the story of Henry Ford all the time. I love that one. Like they always said he wasn't the smartest guy, but he hired people, surrounded himself with people who were smarter than him at everything.
Yep.
And look what, nobody remembers any of other names. They remember Henry Ford's name.
Exactly. And that's the thing. You have to, when you're running your own company like you are, and now you have opportunity to scale. There's a great book out there, other than my book, The Bridge to Change, but there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. I've spoken about this book a ton on this show. It's a very popular book for entrepreneurs, and it really talks about how identifying the who's in your life and the who's in your business will change how things get done, right? You don't have to always have the how to do the things. You have to have the who's that are going to take care of the how and get it done. That way you're freed up to do exactly what you want to do. That's what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
Dan, this has been awesome. I'm so glad we had a chance to have you on here. And, everybody, I got to tell you, Dan just does incredible work. So if you are thinking of developing your own app and you've always wanted to do it, contact him. So, Dan, what is the best way to contact you?
Yeah, the best way is, like you said, dappermobileapps.com. Got a calendar there. You can definitely grab a spot or check out, different apps we've done. I think we got the Bridge to Change app as a portfolio item on there.
There we
Check
go.
it out. And I actually have my own show and I do my own stuff as well. So you guys can actually go and download an app called Mobile Domination. It's an app I made a little bit kind of like the Bridge to Change app. I do a live stream in there. I have all kinds of cool resources and stuff in there, podcasts, all kinds of really, really just app centric stuff.
That's awesome.
So either one of those ways would be a good way.
Thank you, my friend, for being here. I really appreciate it. That's dappermobileapps.com, and the app is Mobile Domination. Go download Mobile Domination, and you can be introduced to Dan. And listen, if you haven't had a chance, go download my app, Bridge to Change. You can download it on any platform. There's a lot of great stuff in there. Dan really helped me to create something that I think is really cool and really puts everything at your fingertips. All of my resources comes together really in that app. So Dan, thanks again for being here. And for those of you, we'll be back after this commercial break. I look forward to talking to you, and we're going to talk about fear. All right, we'll talk to you right after this.
Here come bad news, talking this and that.
Hey, this is Tom Marino of The Tom Marino Show here. Imagine you wake up and you've had a major sewer backup in your home. Well, let me tell you about a company that I've worked with personally, New House Restoration, where they take your damaged old house and make it a new house. For any water, fire, mold, or asbestos damage, please call them at 631-604-8590. That's 631-604-8590. New House Restoration.
Because I'm happy. Clap along.
And welcome back to the Tom Marino Show. I'm your host, Success Strategy Coach Tom Marino. Thank you so much for tuning back in. I cannot believe it's the end of another show here. We got 10 minutes left, and wanted to talk to you today about a topic that's been coming up a lot lately. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. But if you have a question, you can also give me a call at 631-451-1039, 631-451-1039. Before I wrap up this part of the show, I want to just thank Dan Hafner again for being on the show from Dapper Mobile Apps. That's dappermobileapps.com. Please visit him if you're interested in developing an app. He's got some really great platforms, really great templates, ways that you can really get something off the ground relatively quickly. And it's a fun process. And if you always wanted to do it, why not do it now? But definitely check out dappermobileapps.com. And Dan is a great guy to work with. So I want to talk about fear again, weathering the storm. That's how I'm going to phrase it. It's weathering the storm. We have so much fear around us right now. And I've talked about fear before. Integrating fear is part of the choice model. It's part of what I do with clients when I'm working with them, is to help them integrate fear into their life, to really make it a friend and an advisor. But it's been really coming up lately. We saw fear the other day in the stock market, and the way the stock market came down a bit. We'll say a bit. I've heard some horror stories lately about people losing a lot of money in crypto too. So there's a lot of fear out there that's dictating the mood of these things. And, we're very fearful right now of a recession. We have high gas prices. The stock market dropped the other day. Interest rates were just increased yesterday. The Feds increased interest rates. We fear that we're not going to have what we need to weather this storm, period that we're going to be entering again. And I say again because I just feel like we got out of a major storm with this pandemic of ours. But I've been doing something a little different on LinkedIn lately when I connect with people. When I get a new connection on LinkedIn, I am asking people to ask me a question or ask for a topic that they would like to see spoken about on my feed. Information or tips that they can benefit from and their business can benefit from. And I was talking through messaging on LinkedIn with this business owner the other day, and he said, everything seems to be going well right now, but we keep hearing about this recession. We keep hearing about this. We would really love some tips on how to better weather the storm. Because how is that going to impact all of us? How is it going to change us? And we're always fearful of change, especially when it's thrust upon us and we're not consciously making a decision to activate our desire to change. And, some things I always encourage people to think about when we talk about fear. One is fear is an informer. Fear is an advisor. Fear should lead us to action, not inaction. It should not paralyze us. But fear is also this root cause of stress in our lives. When we're afraid, we go into a fight or flight, right? And that response is a stress response. Your body, your brain, your amygdala causes the release of hormones from throughout your body. That's when adrenaline comes in. And that's when I talk about the adrenalized life and how using the benefits of adrenaline are so important to get out of a stuck situation. However, too much of it can be very stressful for the body. It doesn't work and it makes you sick. We know when we are stressed, it's when we are more susceptible of becoming ill. Because when we overexpose ourselves to stress, our bodies really can't handle it. So like a few years ago, when my wife turned 40, I was planning this surprise birthday party for her. I was working really hard to keep it a secret. I was doing a lot of different things for it, and I was getting stressed, but I was afraid that things were not going to go the way I wanted them to go. I was trying to control too much of it. 2 days later, I'm in the hospital with diverticulitis. Because of my stress, I made myself sick. When I was a teenager, I was in a play in high school, and after being in that play, when that play was over, a week later, I was diagnosed with mono. So I know from myself that when I don't respond to how my stress levels are, I get sick. So how do we combat stress derived from fear? How do we weather the storms of our lives? Number one, I want you to be prepared. Like a good Boy Scout, you got to be prepared. We've got to be prepared for the hurricane that's coming. Right? When the hurricane is coming, when it's in the forecast, what do? We run to the store. We buy wood to protect our windows. We do things to prepare our homes for the flood. We do things to prepare our homes for days without power. We get on the gas line and get gas because we're afraid we're going to run out of gas. And we saw this many years ago, with Sandy. We prepare for that stuff. Preparing for that stuff does help to alleviate some of the fear. But right now, prepare for the recession. Maybe put some more money away from your paycheck. Maybe spend less. Think about ways to be more prepared to handle what time we're going into. Number 2, continue your self-care regimens. Make sure you're taking care of your mind, your body, and your soul. Make sure you're getting rest. Make sure you're sleeping well. Because when we are stressed, we deprive ourselves of self-care. You need to maintain your self-care. Meditate, go for a walk, go have some fun, watch something funny. Have a good self-care regimen. The next thing to do is personify the fear. What does the fear look like to you? What does it look like? Because if we can picture it, we can manage it differently. So what does your fear really look like right now? The fourth thing, don't fuel the fear or the stress. Now, I was speaking with a client earlier today, and she's in a stressful situation. She's away with her in-laws. That's stressful for many people, okay? But she has a fear of being judged by them, and it's increasing her stress level. She has ideological differences, and my advice was don't fuel the stress. Don't consume it either. Don't consume that fear. It's the same thing we ask ourselves when we go into the refrigerator and find something expired. Would you eat it? Would you put something toxic in your body? Probably not, because you would get sick. So why would you consume fear? Why would you consume stress? I was talking to a divorce coach last night for an episode on my podcast, and we were talking about when people first get divorced, they have fear of being alone. And in my experience with people who have been divorced, and my clients specifically, I've seen that fear of being alone become a huge source of stress for them. They stress being alone, so they jump into a relationship because they fear being alone. But what they don't realize is that if they haven't taken the time to heal, if they haven't taken the time for themselves, if they haven't taken the time to be alone with themselves, to work on the things that they want to work on, and they jump into something, they're only going to wind up in the same relationship that they just got out of. Don't let fear drive your decisions. Don't base your decisions in fear. Don't act out of fear without evaluating it, learning from it, and seeking its advice. We are fearful people. We live in a society that thrives on fear, that makes money off of fear, and literally shoves it down our throats. Don't consume it. Be aware of the things you're listening to. You have the choice whether or not you're going to consume it, but don't fuel it either. If you need fear out of your life, you need stress out of your life, reach out to me at tommarino.com or message me on Instagram at tommarinocoaching. I will help you navigate your fears and reduce your stressors. I will help you put these 4 things in place that I just mentioned. Being prepared, personifying the fear, not fueling the fear, and taking care of yourself. So I want to thank Dan again for being on the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Check out dappermobileapps.com. Go to tommarino.com. And listen, don't let fear control your life. Until next time, this is Tom Marino saying choose your adrenalized life.
If you feel like happiness is the truth, because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you.